as if this week could not get any crazier. Now we get the news that one Christian Horner has... It's just gotten very, very techy for this fella. I had to get, you know what, just as I was drafting my daily video essay talking about all of the F1 news, I see this breaking and like, oh my gosh, I've got to come on and talk to you guys about this in real time. So here's what's happened. Here is what's happened. Joe Sayward is a very reputable journo. Published something, you guys can read it in the to my left. Unbelievable. Joe Sayward has said, well, we have full meltdown. The F1 world has just been sent half the story. If the whole story comes out, it is going to be really ugly. Now, here's my concern for Christian Horner. I'm not sure that he gets... I'm not sure... I don't know what's going to go on with this now. Because Joe Sayward, these are guys now who are publishing this that are reputable guys, not The Telegraph and Eric Van Haren or somebody like that. This chap, Joe Sayward, is a very reputable F1 journalist, and for him to start talking about this gives it credence. He continues. I mean, he's questioned. You guys can see the bloody tweet. Fred questioned. Well, this definitely reeks of a power grab within Red Bull. Not even 24 hours ago, someone says. He was reportedly cleared, and now suddenly this email surfaces. Someone is really desperate to get Horner booted out. Yes, they are, says Joe Sayward. So what we're alluding to, what's going on, Bert, FIFA 4, I hope you're all good. Please dash a like at this. This is going to be a short one. But again, I'm just seeing this news come out. And you know what the naysayers will say? The Red Bull fanboys will say, Cameron, why are you talking about this stuff again? It's been 3 days consecutive now, and you're doing another Christian Horner video in it. Stop exploiting this circumstance. But there's no circumstance to exploit unless this dude keeps making the news, right? Like, this is in the news cycle, so what else are we going to talk about? Okay, we'll get to FP2, and that's newsworthy also. But when news like this breaks, whether it's football, UFC, badminton, whatever, global politics, then people are going to talk about it. It's on Sky Sports, it's in the Times, it's on Twitter. The likes of Joe Sayward and Jenny Fryer are talking about it. So what else? What, because we're YouTubers, then we're not allowed to because you like Christian Horner? Behave yourself. I can't do that anymore. I think it's nonsense. Got to talk to these issues in earnest, the whole truth and nothing but the truth for whatever that's worth. And now that these reputable journos are talking about it, how can we not talk about it? It would be disingenuous of us as YouTubers not to talk about it. It's bonkers, but I will get to that shortly, brother. It's going to be part of my daily video news, but we will get to FP2 very shortly. But I need to talk about this first. I am concerned for Christian Horner. Just as it looked like he was out of Shawshank, this gets released and he's right back in. What am I talking about? Well, Jenny Fryer tweeted earlier, circa 3 p.m. GMT. You guys can't even see it. What am I doing? Cameron, come on, Cameron. Right, I will talk to it. I'll leave that up. Jenny Fryer tweeted circa 3 p.m. In fact, let's just get me on. I can talk to this. I've got enough words. You guys don't need to see this screenshot. Sometimes you need to talk to it. Jenny Fryer, again, a very reputable journalist in and of the F1 space. Well known. Massive respect for her. She's tweeted something to the effect of, an email, a Google Drive has just gone round to reputable journalists, Liberty Media, all team principals, titled Christian Horner Evidence. Mate, how has this got out? What does it contain? What does this entail? And what does it mean? Well, we can't speculate for the first three of that list, but what we can say is that this could be really bad for Christian Horner going forward. Just as this morning during the team principal press conference, two team principals being Toto Wolff and Zach Brown were raising questions around the veracity and the opacity of this investigation. These guys, being the team principals and third parties, all parties associated with this, F12, Liberty Media, want to see the investigation. They want to understand the brass tacks, what it entails, the sum of its components indeed. They want to see the evidence and the process. And somebody apparently has sent this to all parties concerned. Again, for the avoidance of doubt, I will reiterate, being Liberty Media, F1 commercial rights holder, being team principals, being team owners, all these guys have seen it. And most noteworthy amongst reputable F1 journos, when you've got Jenny Fryer and Joe Sayward talking about this, these guys have length and breadth in terms of their reputation for reporting sensible, verified F1 media. We have ourselves a problem, Houston. This is chaos. Just as Kim Illman had snapped Christian Horner having a conversation, mind you, his countenance was very somber, but he was having a conversation, sat around a table with Adrian Newey. The world's press were hounding him as he entered the Sakir circuit. You guys would have seen all the footage. Christian would have thought that he was out of Shawshank. Oh, this is a game changer, ladies and gents. An absolute game changer for the avoidance of doubt. This could be chaos. Now, who knows what this means going forward? Now that Liberty Media in fact, let's address that at the outset. How do you verify that this is the evidence? How do you tick and tie? Obviously, somebody at Red Bull GmbH, the Red Bull Group paymasters, they will be able to cross-reference this and they'll understand and know. They've stated for the avoidance of doubt that this is still an internal, independent, an internal matter that they've used an independent investigation to get to the bottom of. They used the King's Counsel, the independent barrister. But they will be able to cross-reference this, right? How do you know it's verifiable? Game Boss, it's techie. It's very, very techie. This is skill. I'm going to talk to Lewis Hamilton, I promise you, but this news is like groundbreaking. So I had to jump on quickly. I mean, I was just drafting out the video essay to talk about the news in the day that was the F1 news cycle, and I see this and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to jump on again, haven't I? Got to talk about this. Even though the naysayers and Red Bull fundamentalists, the Christian Horner man them, will say that I shouldn't be talking about this. Well, why not? What when Joe Sayward and Jenny Fryer are talking about, what, you think this is going away now? This is news. Of course, you got to talk about it. The world is going to be talking about it. Turn on your 9 o'clock news tonight and they will be talking about it as well. So what do you mean don't talk about this? Stop exploiting Christian Horner. Christian Horner's a millionaire. What are you talking like? This exploit probably isn't a word that we should be using right about now. Not it's time and place, because this is going to kick off again, I think. Now, of course, this is conjecture and speculation, but over the past couple of days, you see that F1 is a sort of jigsaw puzzle. Occam's razor sometimes. You got to try and make sense of it from a distance and put together the dots as best you can. Dangerous game. Again, defamatory lawsuits and slander are all encompassed in this, but it's chaotic now, isn't it? Jenny Fryer, holy smokes. Go and check her out on Twitter. In fact, let me pull up what she said, because this is important. So, initially, Jenny Fryer said, a Google Drive containing all the quote, Christian Horner evidence, unquote, has just been emailed from an anonymous account to hundreds of journalists. Holy smoke. That is chaos. So people are now sifting through this information in real time to understand the veracity of it. Does it match? Does it marry what was in the 130-page investigation that the independent barrister went through? Does it match? What are we doing here? This is bonkers. Jenna Fryer, continues. I cannot ethically share any of this until Associated Press has validated the authenticity of the information. Holy smoke! So they're gonna do it. The Associated Press. This is Christian. This is bad. Just when we thought we were out, Jenny Fryer pulls us back in. There are enough people on the distribution list that someone will satisfy your urge to see the material soonest. Oh my gosh, this is so chaotic. So this information is going to come out now. Too many journos on the email list. And apparently they've sent the Google Drive in the information in such a way that all the journos, anybody on the distribution list, can see all the other people on the distribution list. So Toto can see Frederick Vasseur, and Frederick Vasseur can see Jenna Fryer, and Jenna Fryer can see Joe Sayward. So they all know, and they will all be talking about it. Sounds like it exonerates him, must bloody Nora, must don't even... We can't even get satirical at this stage. It's too much. Jenna Fryer continues. Correction. In addition to journalists, it is sent to the other team principals, Liberty Media, Stefano Domenicali, and many others. Oh my goodness, what does the file contain, Jenna? Please do tell. What's on the file? A Google Drive containing all of Christian Horner evidence. Oh, here she goes. Geez, are you ready for it? Here's the bombshell. Jenna Fryer continues. The file contains photos of WhatsApp messages and other photos. Oof. Yeah, this is techie, guys. Do me a favour and smash the like very quickly, because this is chaos. I'm trying to compute what it means. I don't know what it all means. But what I do know is that it's not looking for... If the Associated Press verifies that these are the actual emails and texts and WhatsApp from the investigation document, the 130-page worth of investigation document that the independent barrister looked through, then it's a wrap. It is a wrap. And Jenna Fryer knows what she's talking about, right? If she's saying that somebody's going to leak it soon-ish, then that's an issue. Let's talk about Mercedes' performance and who's going to get pole tomorrow night. Andrew, I hear you, man, but I just wanted to address that because it's chaos. For those of you who are just joining, do me a favour and smash the like, por favor, to allow the YouTube algorithm to understand that we're out here talking some overly verbose F1 banter, but this is bloody chaotic. This Christian Horner stuff, I don't know how he's going to escape this. And they get it twisted. Aside from all of these shenanigans, I like Christian Horner, and he's a controversial polemic figure, isn't he? But I think the F1 grid is, I think the rich tapestry of the F1 grid is spicier and more vibrant for his presence on it. That's my honest opinion. So I was kind of relieved almost. How weird is that? Irrespective of guilty, innocent, whatever, I was kind of relieved to kind of see him come back in, notwithstanding the fact that the world's press was snapping the ish out of him. And again, that's testament to how big a story this is. So I shall not have the blasphemy of the naysayers and the Red Pill Mafia. How dare you talk about it? What do you mean, how dare I talk about this? As if I'm the only one. Sky Sports, this is all over Sky Sports, and bloody Liberty Media have the docs now. Stefano Domenicali is going to need to talk about this and make an assessment, make a call himself. That's how high... I'm not crying. I probably should be. But that's how high and consequential this is now. God help us when this leaks. Can you imagine? I've just been sounding out the Red Pill Mafia. Can you imagine those on the other side? The far left. Put him in handcuffs. How dare it? Well, again, it depends on the content of the leakage, doesn't it? Oh my gosh, my head hurts. Go on then. In other news, Dwayne, the banter is strong, eh? Got to talk about it. And it feels like nobody else is talking about it yet. Pending the leakage of the actual. And you know what the joke is? I saw another message. Can be rubbing my head because it's killing me so much. Do me a favour, guys, and smash a like, yeah, because I'm going to go another 10 minutes. I read a message just now in other related news. I read a message just now citing a BBC podcast that talked about this in very disparaging terms, as if almost those journos had already seen this leaked information. This is so chaotic now. Christian Horner's going to do well to get out of this. As brilliant as Christian is politically, and again, that's been his stick, the way he's managed to foster rapport with the Yavija family, the family that owned 51% of Red Bull, the family that ultimately have the final say on all human resource matters, if indeed it does go up the chain sufficiently. Christian's done a brilliant job of fostering rapport and managing the political landscape, house of cardsing it, you know. Kevin spacing it a little bit. That's a very poor. Oh, Cameron, could you crack a poorer joke? You understand what I mean. Playing the political game. That's exactly what Christian Horner's done in this. And maybe ultimately that comes back to bite him. We wait with bated breath to see what happens with this leaked message. I feel like I need to just get on Twitter and maybe update it, because this is a moving target. Jenna Fryer has made that tweet at 3 p.m. GMT. And it's all kicking off massively. Let me just double check before I move on to the other news very quickly. Some proper racing stuff rather than Gossip Girls stuff. Again, another poorly timed joke. Cameron, you're having a mare today, mate. What are you talking about? Right. Let's see what Jenna Fryer said. So the latest. Oh, there we go. Look. Joe Sayward is the latest. Oh my gosh. 374. Oh, if Joe is saying it, this is my issue, right? And again, final point on the Christian Horner stuff. If Jenna is saying it, and Joe's saying it, and these guys are very reputable, storied journos, then do you know what I mean? It's chaotic. I mean, Joe wouldn't tweet it unless he had a semblance of trust in the information. So I'm not saying you can take this one to the bank, but bloody Nora. Have you ever heard of deepfake, says Madeline? Yeah, absolutely. So you've got to verify it, right? But this is Madeline, Associated Press are on this now. And once they verify it, like the cat's out the bag, right? Pandora's box is open and there's no closing it back. Voldnerok. Otra vez, arroz. Yeah, no, mate, this is chaotic. Chaotic. Very, very chaotic. So we wait with bated breath. But in other news, let me get to my little notepad, the things that I was going to talk about and film this video. 2 streams back to back in consecutive days because the news has been so urgent. Do me a favor, guys, smash the like, subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. But in other more racing related news, so I want to talk about this very quickly before we talk about time. Smash the like. Go and check out the press conference yesterday. I talked about this on the Shakedown with my guys Shez and Baxty. It was very interesting, and it wasn't lost on me, that Craig Slater asked Lewis Hamilton yesterday a very straightforward question, a bit of a slam dunk. Next year when you're not here, do you think George Russell has got the requisite to handle a very fast challenger in Andrea Kimi Antonelli? Do you think he's got the technical nous to fend off a driver like that? And Lewis did one of these. He went, took about a 3-second pause, and then he came back with the exam answer and said, yeah, well, sure he can. Sure, I think he can. He's in a good position too, because he's very close with Toto Wolff. And I thought from Lewis Hamilton, at this stage of his Mercedes career, I thought those words were very choice. I thought he chose them very deliberately. I'm not saying it was, I'm not saying he was being a negative Nancy, but I just think Lewis has a history of being brilliant, of managing PR to his own ends, indeed weaponizing it even. Lewis Hamilton is brilliant at doing it. I said it on the Shakedown yesterday, Baxter and Shez, and I will say it again for the avoidance of doubt. Lewis rarely makes a PR misstep. You can count on one hand the number of, the one that springs to mind obviously is way back when, 2007, 2008 maybe. 2007, I think, when he said maybe it's because I'm black, when he was talking about feeling like he's been victimized by the stewards in Monaco. That was poor form from Lewis. And even if he felt that way, as far as managing PR and weaponizing it to your own end, absolutely shouldn't have said that. But for the rest of his career, in my humble opinion, PR wise, he's been pitch perfect, rarely made a misstep. So for Lewis to pick those words, I think it's damning. If we're talking about, if we're couching it in terms of the relationship that he has with one George Russell, Mr. PR63, you got to imagine George would be looking at that thinking, what's Lewis on about? Why the big elongated pause on the sigh, as if you've got something else that you want to say? George would be looking at that Lewis Hamilton answer being like, all right then, mate, I'll see you on Saturday, chap. I'll see you on Friday. I think George has got to be the man from Kings Lynn, Norfolk in George Russell's got to be looking at that a bit like, just bloody nut. What are you? You can't just say yes, Lewis. Like, I know for a fact. And of course, Lewis ultimately gave the exam answer when he was talking about George Russell. He did. That was the correct answer. But you kind of wish that the delivery, the how more than the what, was better. You've got to if you're George Russell. I don't know. I thought it was really damning. And I think that's very foreboding if we're looking forward and thinking about the potential acrimony that we may see this year between Messrs Russell and Hamilton. It could, ladies and gents, get very techie between the Mercedes pairing, if it isn't already. You guys let me know in the chat if you've watched that driver's press conference. Let me know in the chat what you thought about Lewis Hamilton's comments, because I looked at it and I was just like, oh, just put my George Russell cap on instantly. I was like, this can't feel good for George to hear Lewis talk about him. Okay, so what he said absolutely was the exam answer. And Lewis, yeah, of course he's capable and he's technical enough. And George's journey coming up through Williams, that's been a breeding ground. That was a shot to nothing, if you will. He said all the right stuff in the end, but I just think the howls, George will be looking at that being like, mate, what are we talking about, Lewis? You probably won't even have a conversation with him, but again, potentially that's why it's already gone past due. Maybe their relationship is already too far gone, and what we've been presented with is team PR. Unless lest we forget that both of them, all of them at that Mercedes team are very good at PR. So would we know if there was fissure? Probably not. We wouldn't know, would we? Although then you hear Toto start talking about, yeah, well, I had to let Lewis go because I feared letting or not being able to provide Kimi Antonelli with a seat. What? It's all coming out now, isn't it? Mercedes, the guys and girls from Brackley and Brixworth are spilling the beans, and I'm like, I'm here for it, but I think it's quite sad as well. It's a bit like, I don't know. Maybe it bodes well for racing this year, but we really don't know how far George can go, says Noir, or what his leaderships are. Was Lewis bang on Noir? Really? Okay, so all right, I hear you, Noir. I hear you. My point of contention, though. Do me a favour and smash the like if you please. My point of contention, though, is this, Tayan. Red Bull are self-destructing, and I'll bring back to that again in a minute for those of you who've just joined the shoot. Do me a favour, smash the like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Right, to Noir's point. I think context is key, right? And this is what I was arguing to Shez and Baxty overnight. Like, I messaged Shez at 4 a.m. and I was like, Shez, am I reaching when I read into Lewis Hamilton's tone and the way that he's answered these questions? And Shez was like, yeah, mate, you're reaching. I think Shez said something to the effect of, he was just like, it's a daft question. And that's his sigh and his elongated pause before we went on to answer the question was a function of him thinking that the question was just a bit noddy of a question. Why are you even asking that about? Why are you asking me about how good my teammate is, particularly as I'm going to Ferrari in 2025? That was Shez's opinion. And I like to sense check. I'm on here sense checking my thought process with you guys, right? Because nobody bats 1,000 in this. And then I watched it again a couple of times. You guys forgive me. Keep wiping my eyes for some reason. I'm crying at the demise of Christian Horner, apparently. Bloody Nora. Watched it again a couple of times. Lewis Hamilton at the press conference talking about George Russell is what I'm talking about here. I watched it a couple of times, Noir. And the problem is context again. Two things I want to consider. Lewis Hamilton is a PR master, very rarely makes a misstep. Count it on one hand the number of times that Lewis has said something rogue in front of the world's press and media, right? very rarely makes a misstep. So that's your first bit of context. Second bit of context, he was also asked at the same press conference about Mercedes' chances of winning the championship. Now, again, what we've just seen in FP2 completely changes the landscape on this. But as I'm listening to this, I'm like, go on then, Lise, let me hear your answer. Because the exam answer from my perspective is to play down hopes and aspirations of Mercedes having a car capable of winning the championship, especially with what we know from Red Bull during testing, right? Because we know a couple of things about Red Bull. Max Verstappen putting in those bloody crazy sim runs. They didn't, Charles Leclerc said it right, they never did a proper race simulation even during testing. So confident were they. We saw Max Verstappen's race engineer GP and that big wide Cheshire cat grin. But we don't think, you've got to have pace in hand to be smiling that broadly, right? You've got to have pace in hand. Why would he be smiling like that otherwise? Now I might be connecting dots here that shouldn't be connected, but again, we're speculating, and this is what you do within those realms. Third point, Max Verstappen at no point, even though he's setting blisteringly quick laps, I'm told by people infinitely more intelligent and well versed in this stuff than me, that Max Verstappen at no point during testing had any less than 35 kilograms worth of fuel in his car. Do the maths. If 1 kilogram is worth 3,000th of a second, you guys did the maths. So that leaves them in a brilliant circumstance. So I would expect something to this effect from Sir Lewis Hamilton. Ergo, play down our hopes. Maybe we'll get there, maybe we won't. But we've got you've heard Lewis Hamilton talk like this a gazillion times. We've got a long way to go. Who knows where we are? The car feels good, but let's see. Red Bull are far down the road. Lewis said something to the effect of, I know Mercedes will win another championship. So again, compare and contrast, Noir. Very long-winded way of answering your question here. But compare and contrast that bombast, that surety when he's talking about Mercedes' chances of winning a championship going forward, with the tone of his George Russell answer. I just thought it was night and day. Not the words that he said, because ultimately they were both the exam answers, but the surety with which Lewis talked when he answered both of them. I just thought it was crazy. Can you imagine George Russell seeing that? George must have been like, what are we doing? But hey, and in other news, I digress, but the only reason why I'm doing this stream, again, I was putting together the news video, and I saw this issued by Jenny Fryer. Jenny Fryer has said that, I'm going to read it out for those of you who are just joining. If you are just joining, do me a favour and smash that like and subscribe also, remember. Joe Sayward, God tier F1 journo, said, well, be a full meltdown. Quote, the F1 world has just been sent half the story. If the whole story comes out, it is going to be really ugly. Infer from that what you will. People are out to get Mr. Christian Horner. And again, you can speculate for whatever you want. I have it on good authority that the guys in Austria they're not particularly fond of Christian, and who doesn't know this at this stage, that on the back of Dietrich, and again, this is me going into conjecture and speculation waters, but on the back of Dietrich Mateschitz passing strict authority around human resources, if indeed it does escalate to that point. Dietrich had it before his passing, but it wasn't articulated in explicit terms who would have that post Dietrich's being around. And ultimately it goes to whoever owns more shares, right? In matters like this. And the Thai family, luckily for Christian Horner, the Thai Yovidia family, who own 51% of the shares, consider Christian Horner to be a son, almost like an adoptive son. Infer from that, guys, what you will. Let's talk about FP2 for a second, because it's techie, isn't it? So, Lewis Hamilton put together a lap in FP2 just now. In other news, that was half a second quicker than anything that Red Bull had to offer. Now we know this is practice, and we know if past this prologue that Red Bull have a habit of focusing almost exclusively on race pace. They don't really care for quali because they know that their DRS is super, super strong, overpowered in fact, by virtue of the fact that they have this car, this stable chassis that gives them this massively aerodynamically efficient base from which to work, from which Max Verstappen has a tendency to extract 10 tenths 99% of the time. Boom. Bait that in. Red Bull more than likely are doing what Red Bull do and focusing on Noir. You're an absolute legend. Lewis, thank you so much, Noir. You're too kind. Red Bull, I think, watching FP2 are doing what Red Bull do and focusing on the race as you'd expect them to do. Leopards don't change their spots, do they? So we've got to look at the Lewis time. If we're talking about racing being the zero-sum game and the difference between Red Bull and the apparent pace setters in Mercedes, you've got to think that Red Bull, not sandbagging, but they might have been doing race runs here. That's what you've got to guesstimate, right? Zach Brown underlines this. He said that, again, looking at his data from the pit wall, he asserted that he thinks that Ferrari and Mercedes both were Ferrari and Red Bull, were both running setups with their engines turned down. I think he was looking at the straight line pace of them, which is techie, right? Trusting Zach Brown, if that's what he sees, then far for it to be me to disagree, Zach Brown. But as a Mercedes fan, bloody no, you should have seen I had the same GP smile, massive Cheshire cat grin. I can't even talk, can't even pronounce my words. I was loving it. Noir says Lewis knows his teammate. He's been with for 10 years, but he doesn't know George as well. Blimey. Right now, Red Bull is way ahead, but it's a long season. It's a little sad, all this Horner scandal. I completely agree with you, Noir. Thank you so much for the generosity. Listen, anybody that donates a cheeky one gets president, and there's no obligation, absolutely none. But I appreciate it, Noir. Super, super kind and generous. I'm saying, therefore, if we're talking the pace setter, it would be foolhardy of me to say that Red Bull are no longer the pace setter on the back of what we saw in testing. I can't throw that away, right? Knowing what we know, knowing that Max didn't run at any point any less than 35 kilograms. Oh, the humanity. This is chaos. But here's hoping. I watched that and had a smile in my face. Allow us to be optimistic for 1 second, Lewis fans all over the world, you know? A goal. Max has said he wasn't bothered. Max has even said that he felt like he could have done with less laps in testing. So comfortable and malleable did the car feel to him, which is chaos. Engine modes, has said. Yeah. Engine modes. So yeah, if I'm a betting man, it'd be interesting to see what the odds have done, to be fair. I think Max Verstappen is still heavy favourite for quali and the race. Let's check it out now, actually, very quickly. Do me a favour, subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Remember to smash the like. Let's have a look at what the odds makers are saying to see if Max previously was a massive odds-on favourite. 18-5 on to win a championship. Let's see what we can get him at now to see whether that's changed for the championship. Interesting. You can't even get odds at the moment. Oof. Let's see what he used to win the race. Oh, so still, okay, so Bahrain Grand Prix winner still got Max 2-5 on, no change really. Charles Leclerc 16-1, Lewis Hamilton 18-1. So odds makers aren't having it. They're not buying into this. They think that was just a glory run from Lewis Hamilton and George Russell. But again, solace for Mercedes fans all over the world is the fact that it was Lewis and George up top, wasn't it? Oh, I want to believe it so much. So badly do I want a competitive season this season. Oh my gosh. Yeah, allow me to believe for a day. Just a day. Just give me a day to believe we're going to get a competitive season and Lewis is going to be back up there and he's going to be fighting with Max and et al. And it's going to be George. And just, do you know what I mean? This might be the one day that we get this year to believe for a second that there's going to be a competitive championship. Because in all likelihood, if those odds are to be believed, they're giving Max an 80% chance. 5 over 7, what's that? They're saying the chances of one Max Verstappen winning the Bahrain Grand Prix, 71% of the time. Ergo, run a simulation of the Bahrain Grand Prix 100 times. They're saying Max wins 71 of them. Even with the current information, that is bonkers. You'd be nuts to bet against Max Verstappen. Tayan, what are you saying? In the F1 warm-up yesterday, they suggested Jos Verstappen was involved in the allegations. That would be wild. Tayan, am I even allowed to talk about it? I really want to tell you guys what I think I know. But the mafia, the information mafia and the Red Bull dons will come for me. How dare you, Cameron, speculate on the Christian Horner circumstance and exploit... Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't even want to... Tayan, drop a comment underneath this video and I'll message you what I think I know. The speculation has been that what's happened is that in and amongst the power struggle, you have Christian Horner and the Thai family on one side, apparently, allegedly, and on the other side, you have the guys in Austria being Oliver Mintzlaff, Mark Mateschitz, Dietrich's son, and Helmut Marko and Jos Verstappen. They're on one side and it's split down the middle. And again, this is all, I suppose the why in all of this is that it's hands up believers. Fabrizio says, so taking a full drink of the hopium. I have to, Fabrizio, this might be my only opportunity before we're doused with a big dose of reality tomorrow doing qualifying, for which we will be streaming, of course. I was going to say something. Tayan, you have my blessing. Right, the source is that it's a power struggle because there was a power vacuum on the back of Dietrich's tragic passing. He hadn't devolved certain responsibilities down to Christian, do you know what I mean? So there's this massive power grab going on, and the guys and girls in Austria, as Red Bull Racing has become this behemoth even of an entity, a racing team. It seems like now there's this, do you know what I mean? There has been a power vacuum left by the passing of Dietrich, and now you have this massive power struggle as Austria are keen to take more of Red Bull Racing from Christian Horner than he's willing to cede voluntarily. That's the thing. So that's the source. That's the why. The what we don't know quite yet. Apparently, if Jennifer is to be believed, we will see this in earnest. Too many journos have this information. Whether the information is true or false, leave that for the Associated Press to verify. As at the time of writing, it's still speculation and conjecture. Is that why Jos was wearing Red Bull clothes today to showcase? I have no idea, Clips. I have no idea, but it does run deep. I don't want to get too deep into the gossip, but like if you guys peruse websites, you will. No, I won't do it. I shall not do it. Right. Okay. Lewis Hamilton's lap, fastest by half a second, took back to Red Bull. Couple of things to consider. Fuel loads. Zach Brown says that engine modes were turned down in that Ferrari and that Red Bull. Tyre attempts to consider. Again, when we're watching qualifying tomorrow, I can't remember the time, maybe 3:45 GMT. When we're on the stream, we'll need to remember that the temperatures are crazy, right? The temperatures will be for the qualifying session what they were for FP2, and I assumed that the track would continue to evolve and develop, but past the certain temperatures, the temperature kind of declines in the Bahrain night. The track kind of, the evolution peaks and then tails off, right? So we'll want to consider that. I think they would have experienced that today as well, and some of the guys fallen victim of it. Bake that into your extrapolations and forecasts. Damon, however, who was trackside, said that both Mercedes looked very comfortable. I quote, again, cited that both of them, they were 1 and 2, weren't they? super, super interesting. He's hoping for F1 fans around the world that that's their true pace, and that Red Bull, once they turn up their engines, don't more than offset that half a second. I still think it'll be crazy. I still think but you got to back Red Bull, eh? Again, Zach seemed to think, as I do, that Red Bull have time in hand. In other news, Leclerc says that Red Bull didn't show their true hand in testing. They didn't even run a full Red Bull simulation. Chaos. They're confident, aren't they? If body language is anything, just have a look at the big smile that bloody Giampiero Lambiase had in his face, right? You don't smile like, and again, maybe out of context, he could have been smiling at anything, but no, I don't know. It doesn't bode well. Jenna Fryer, again, in other news, techie this is, I'm going to read it out, has tweeted, correction, initially her tweet read something like, Christian Horner evidence per the investigation has been sent to journalists. Stay tuned. There's been too many journalists on the email for nobody to leak it. Somebody will leak it imminently. Stay tuned. And then she said, correction, in addition to journalists, it's been sent to other team principals, Liberty Media, Stefano Domenicali, and many others. The file contains lots of photos of WhatsApp messages and other photos. Bombshell news. We've done that to death, though. Yeah, Walter, my sentiments exactly. Just when he thought he was out, he gets brought back in. This doesn't bode well. And there I was thinking that Christian was going to be, you know what, let me not even. This is bad. The Associated Press will be verifying this as we speak. If they verify it, then it's only a matter of time till all of that stuff gets leaked. Photos, WhatsApp messages, et al. Mate. Oh, and breathe. And it's a Google Drive for the avoidance of doubt. Case is absolutely not closed. Legal procedures may be pending. Oh God. You know, I'm a bit sick of this. It's very, very juicy, but you know, it's time. I think this is much to the consternation, finally, guys, much to the consternation of the team principals and Liberty Media, because now we're at the meat end of pre-season, right? This is race weekend. Now you want all the participants, all of the watching world and F1 fans globally to be concentrated with their attentions on race weekend, right? Not Horner and Google Drives and leaked messages and independent investigation and accused. Like, it's just distraction is the word. That's what they've said, and that's what it is now in earnest. It's a distraction that we don't want and we don't need, and it needs to be resolved. Let's go Max for the fourth this year. In all probability, Outlaw odds makers give him an 80% chance of nailing it, doesn't they? Yeah, it is tabloidy, but then you say that to him, but Jenna, no longer is it the Telegraph. Jenna Freya and Joe Saywood are very, very serious, well-respected journos, and since they're on Twitter talking about it, Joe Saywood as an example, I've never known him report something to ultimately turn out, not report it and cite it on Twitter. I've never known him talk to something that ultimately turned out to be false. Take that for whatever it's worth. So I don't know, guys. Anyway, that's your news. I was just putting together the daily news video, and then, but I also feel sorry for the alleged accused. I feel sorry for the alleged accuser more than anything, and the families. It's a bad situation. Anyway, do you know what a teammate is? Jean says, Lewis is the worst teammate ever. Bloody Nora. Where do you people come from? Do you even watch F1? Is that where we're going, Jean, as the final statement? He doesn't know what a teammate is. Jeez. I talked to rewind, Jean, and I talked to the George Russell stuff earlier, lest I repeat myself. Right, I'm going. You guys have been legends. Thank you so much to each and every single one of you. Smash that like. Be sure to get subscribed. We will be back tomorrow to talk about all this more and hopefully some actual racing for qualification. Now we get to see which one of these guys actually has clothes on when the tide goes out. See you tomorrow.